The failure of the recent summit between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin to produce a deal on the war in Ukraine has left the situation in a state of uncertainty. While both leaders described the talks as productive, no concrete agreement was reached, and the lack of a ceasefire or a clear path forward has left Ukrainian leadership and its European allies in a state of concern. This outcome is seen by some as a win for Putin, as it effectively undermines Western attempts to isolate Russia and gives him a platform to portray Russia as a key player in international diplomacy. For Ukraine, the general state of affairs remains precarious. Implications for Ukraine and Europe. Ukraine's foreign policy and diplomatic efforts are now focused on navigating this new reality. President Volodymyr Zelensky, who was not present at the summit, is reportedly coordinating with European leaders to ensure a united front against any potential deal that would involve Ukraine ceding territory. The European and Ukrainian position remains that a genuine and lasting peace can only be achieved with a ceasefire that respects Ukraine's territorial integrity and is backed by strong security guarantees from Western allies. The failure of the summit to deliver these results puts the onus back on diplomatic efforts between Ukraine and its supporters to counter Russian demands and maintain pressure on Moscow. The primary reason the recent summit between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin ended without a deal on Ukraine is the fundamental disagreement over territorial integrity and sovereignty. Russia insists that any peace deal must include international recognition of its annexation of Crimea and the 4 other regions it illegally occupied. Ukraine, however, has firmly rejected this, stating that ceding any territory is unconstitutional and would only set a precedent for future Russian aggression. The absence of a Ukrainian representative at the summit further complicated matters, as Ukraine and its European allies have maintained a policy of nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. This principle was sidelined, leaving Ukrainian leadership concerned about any potential concessions made in their absence. Additionally, Russia's demands for Ukraine to halt military mobilization and end Western arms supplies were seen as non-starters for Kiev and its allies, who believe that such conditions would leave Ukraine vulnerable. The failure of the summit has significant consequences. For Ukraine, it means the continuation of a grueling war without a clear diplomatic offering. The lack of a ceasefire allows for the conflict to continue grinding on, with the potential for further loss of life and territorial gains by Russia. This outcome also undermines Ukraine's position, as the absence of a deal could be interpreted as a failure of Western diplomacy and a signal to Russia that its military aggression will not be met with a unified and decisive international response. For the international community, the lack of a deal raises concerns about the effectiveness of diplomatic engagement with Russia. It could lead to a reassessment of strategies and a potential increase in military and economic support for Ukraine to bolster its defenses. However, it also creates an atmosphere of instability and reinforces the perception that the path to peace is long and fraught with challenges, with no easy solutions on the horizon. Ending the conflict will require a multifaceted approach, as the recent summit's failure highlights the deep-seated disagreements. A primary solution would be for a third party, such as the United Nations or a coalition of neutral nations, to facilitate a new round of talks with a strict mandate that includes the direct involvement of Ukrainian representatives. Any credible negotiation must adhere to the principle of nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. A key element of a potential solution involves a phased approach, beginning with an immediate and verifiable ceasefire to halt the fighting and prevent further loss of life. This could be followed by a gradual withdrawal of Russian forces from Ukrainian territory. In return for a full withdrawal, the international community could offer a roadmap for the gradual lifting of sanctions, provided Russia meets its obligations under a comprehensive peace agreement. The final stage would involve addressing the long-term status of disputed territories and establishing robust security guarantees for Ukraine to ensure its sovereignty and prevent future aggression.